When we look at an ecosystem, it's easy to focus on the big stuff, like the trees, mammals, and the birds that live within an area. But we sometimes overlook the smaller, often unseen creatures that do the really important jobs of pollinating, pest control, decomposition, and keeping the whole ecosystem in balance.
So this month we're looking at the unsung heroes of the heathland, the things that hover, hum, buzz and skitter in the undergrowth. That's right, this episode we're looking at insects.
We're here on Horsell Common with Andrew Halstead, retired RHS entomologist, author, public speaker and trustee of the Horsell Common Preservation Society, to talk about all things creepy and crawly.
And as always, we'll be looking at what we've spotted on and around the wild places of Surrey this month. In the meantime, I'm Phil, this is Duncan, this is Ross, and this is Surrey Uncommon. Welcome to Surrey Uncommon, and we're here on another blisteringly hot July day. And today I'm here with Andrew Halstead from the HCPS. Welcome, Andrew.
Hello.
And we're here on Horsell Common to go searching for insects. Now, Andrew, I know you're an insect expert, an entomologist, I believe, and you used to work at the RHS, is that right?
That's right, yes. I was principal entomologist for many years.
Fantastic. And what is it about Horsell that's so special, do you think, from an insect point of view?
Well, it's heathland, and so being heathland you get certain insects which are specific to the area, particularly the sort of things which like hot, dry soil, which we got here this year in abundance. The area behind us here, the sandpit, is one of the hotspot areas for insects on the common because of the long history of it being an open area with relatively little tree cover, and also being in a sort of shadow bowl. You've got a nice warm microclimate, which is what these insects like.
Fantastic. Okay, should we go and see if we can find some then?
We'll have a try.
So Andrew, what got you into insects in the first place?
Well, as a child I used to collect caterpillars and see what they would turn into, so there's a long-standing interest there, and it's just grown over the years, and it's a topic which offers endless opportunities because there's so many different insects, different shapes, different sizes, different colours. You never get tired of them. And even after all these years of looking for insects, I'm finding things which I've never seen before.
As an entomologist at the RHS, what was your role there?
The main role there was giving advice to RHS members and members of the public on how to control pests in their gardens and so on. And sometimes we would have questions like, I found a pretty insect, what is it? So it wasn't all sort of doom and gloom with pests and so on.
What sort of insects would we see out and about in the common?
Well, in a normal year you'd see quite a few solitary bees and lots of solitary wasps. These are solitary insects in the sense that each female makes her own individual nest, which she provisions with food. In the case of bees, they're collecting nectar and pollen. In the case of solitary wasps, they're collecting other insects, which they paralyse with their sting, and they use that as food for their larvae. But this year, because it's been so very hot and dry, we haven't had a drop of rain now for I think 42 days.
Wow.
A lot of the bees have just been and gone. You know, they're not here anymore, or at least they're not here to be seen today. We will, if we're lucky, see the bee wolf, which preys primarily on honeybees.
Got a grasshopper just there.
Yeah. The female will sting the bee to paralyse it, and then she flies back to her nest site, which is a hole in the ground, and stuffs the bee down there, lays an egg and goes off and collects more bees.
And is because they nest in the ground, does that mean that this sort of dry sandy ground is really good for them? Is that?
Yes, yeah, that's what they want, yes. And the bee wolf was a few years back a rare insect. It had red data book status in this country.
Okay.
But thanks to climate change it's spread much more widely now, and it's a common insect. Normally at this time of year, if we were walking through here, we would see them pretty well everywhere, just sort of flying low over the ground. But this year, you've got to do a bit of hunting to find them. You can see lots of patches of different coloured soil.
Oh yes, yeah.
This is where solitary bees, solitary wasps have been digging out their nests. There is a bee wolf there.
Okay, just here?
I think. No, it's a solitary bee.
That's a bee.
This one. Over the course of the year, from spring until late summer, there's a whole succession of insects which are coming along and making their tunnels. So you can imagine by the end of the season, the ground here must be peppered with nest tunnels. When I'm coming out looking for insects, I tend to go sweeping through the bushes like this. There's a grasshopper just gone in there. And then when I think I've got a decent haul, I stick my head in the net.
And you have got a grasshopper, I can see.
Oh yeah, it's a heath grasshopper. This is something you get on these sort of dry heathland areas. We have a number of different species of grasshopper and cricket in this country. Whoops,
There he goes.
it's hopped. I think the grasshopper is the only thing of interest in there. But very often the really interesting ones are the sort of things you can't identify as such in the net. You've got to take them home, look at them under a microscope and look at their sort of fine features to see which particular species it is.
So I suppose wood like this, dead wood like this,
Yeah.
we used to tidy all this stuff up, didn't we? I suppose back in the day, but now a lot of it gets left around.
Well,
doesn't
yeah,
it, for that
Parks
reason?
Department probably would clear that away, but from wildlife point of view, dead wood is far from dead,
Yeah.
because fungal decay that you get there, you get various fly larvae, beetle larvae, which are tunnelling through the decaying tissues, and where you've got beetle holes, that's and tunnels, that's somewhere where some of these solitary bees and solitary wasps will come
you
and
can-
nest,
like in
because
this
they will
one.
utilise those tunnels as a nest site.
Insects generally, not only obviously useful for sort of like saying, sort of turning over the soil, doing those. Ants, I suppose, particularly are good at sort of aerating the soil and putting nutrients into the soil, but I suppose an important food source for lots of other things, aren't they?
Oh yes, I mean they are. I mean, it's been said that you know, they do pretty well all the sort of things which make the planet work. So they are recycling nutrients all the time by eating up dead animals, dead plant material, and so on. They're doing pollination, which is a major feature. Without pollination, we wouldn't have many of the fruits which we eat. They are predators, parasites of other insects, which stop insects becoming too much of a plague. So there's a lot going on. We're coming up now to the Danewell Pond, which is fed by rainwater. It comes in from that end, and when the water is sufficiently high, it'll drain out underneath the sandy track which runs across the common, and then goes down into an area of wet heathland called the Danewell Gutter. But at the moment, of course, everything is horribly dry.
But I mean, it's the lowest I think I've ever seen it, actually.
Yeah,
But
I mean, you
but
can see exposed mud on the far side there,
I
which
suppose
is
it is.
normally covered in water. And if we
suppose
go down there,
it's-
we may see some
Well,
dragonflies.
there's a few buzzing around us at the moment.
skimming
So I
around.
think Ross has found one over there, which is great. So this is there's obviously a vast array of dragonflies. Do you know which ones we tend to get here?
Well, we get the emperor dragonfly, which is a sort of big blue and green job. There are various damselflies. There's a red one around at the moment, and you may get the broad-bodied libellula, which has a pale blue abdomen. Because what they're doing is they're moving around, they're patrolling their territories, they're catching insects on the wing, which is how the adults feed.
That's right, because these are carnivorous, aren't they? I suppose
The immature nymphs will be in the water feeding on aquatic insects, tadpoles, small fish, that sort of thing.
I suppose there'll be other insects that'll be around wet area, won't there? And sort of it's quite important, I suppose. Well, is it sort of hoverfly, dronefly larvae, those sorts of things?
I'm going to have a quick sweep through the bushes here to see if I can find anything.
Okay, this is a favourite thing. Andrew with the net on his head. What have we got here? So
That is a female, or will be a female when it's adult, conehead cricket.
Oh,
You can tell it's a female because you can see that long curved sword-like structure
just
at the
here
rear
back.
end.
Okay.
That's part of its egg-laying equipment, and it will use that to cut incision into a plant and lay its eggs. Different between a cricket and a grasshopper. With crickets, the antennae are very long, usually much longer than the insect's body, whereas with grasshoppers, the antennae are relatively short and stouter.
And is it true that crickets tend to climb rather than jump as much?
Oh, they jump.
They
If
jump,
I
do
let
they?
this go, that will jump.
That would jump. There we go.
Jump.
Look at that though. That's it seems to like you.
No, it's being photogenic. This is a caterpillar which feeds on heather, And when you look at the colour of that, and
it's
you look at the
amazing.
colour of foliage on heather, it's very good camouflage. And it's caterpillar, something called the beautiful yellow underwing. It's a moth, and quite common here on where you've got heather. Whoops, it's gone.
There it goes.
Apart from that, there's a lot of grass seed in here.
There's a lot of things
Spiders,
climbing up by your
bugs.
head at the moment.
Yeah, it always seems to get past me. Yeah, another cricket up
Is that
there.
harvestmen? So tell me about harvestmen, because they're not spiders, are they?
No, they're allied to spiders,
See if I can get that one.
but they have a different body form.
We've got a
No,
couple
they
of lovely crickets again. Those antennae are they're just huge, aren't they? So tell me about so the heathland. There are some rarities here, aren't there? Some specific rarities that are kind of are they? I don't know if they're protected, but certainly red listed, are they? Some Heath tiger beetle, for one.
Yeah, Heath tiger beetle we don't have here, but it has been introduced to some other Surrey wildlife sites. Brentmore Heath, for example, they've tried to get it going there. And it's the sort of thing which could occur here because it's right sort of habitat.
Yeah.
But that's a beetle which we have a green tiger, which is fairly common, but the Heath tiger, darker in colour and much more fussy, I think, about where it lives. And but both types of beetle have larvae which live in a vertical tunnel, and they sit there with their jaws up near the top. And when an insect, like an ant or some other insect, comes crawling by, the larva will rush out and grab it back into the tunnel.
Wow. Okay, so while we head off to see what else we can find, let's see what we've spotted on and around the Surrey heathlands this month. So I'm at the back of Horsell Common, and we've just seen that fields here have all been cut over the last couple of days, and then just sitting over there having a quiet little nap until I intruded. Beautiful, looks like a young fox. Just hanging out. Looks in beautiful condition. Just having a little sleep. It's gorgeous. Well, on sort of initial inspection, it looks like it's been a really good year for butterflies this year. I'm just here with a bunch of gatekeepers and speckled woods. And actually, as I just moved just then, a cloud of them came up. Let's see if I can do the same again. There we go. Like a whole cloud of them. Really good to see as we go along here around these blackberry bushes. See a whole heap more, just see if we can get a bit closer. There we go. They're just so gorgeous. So I don't know if you can hear over the sound of the wind whistling through the trees behind me, but the other sound you can hear is grasshoppers. And I'm here at McLaren Field, you can see the McLaren building over there. And I'm literally surrounded by the sound of grasshoppers. They do sound very abundant this year, and I've been out walking and they've literally been hopping away from me in their hundreds, which obviously is a really, really good sign, whether it's a sign of the dry summer we've had, but obviously an increase in insects means an increase in food available for everything else, so it can only be a good thing. Obviously we do need some rain. You can see the state of the field up here. It's very, very dry. But the sound of grasshoppers is very, very welcome. So about this time of year, I suppose, as we move towards autumn, even though obviously it has been brutally dry this year, you start to see these sorts of webbing forming on gorse and heather. And this particular webbing here, you can see, this is a spider mite, a type of spider mite that makes this webbing. This is a labyrinth spider web. And actually interesting, just beside me here, I believe this is a nursery spider web, and you can see the egg sac in the middle there.
just tucked away in the middle there, which is the point. It's like a dome at the top, in this case of heather, and it's exactly what it says, the nursery spider, so it lays its eggs in there and that protects them. But over here, this is really interesting. We've got this labyrinth spider, and actually you can see it. The spider is actually just there. So the reason you can tell is that, can you see there's like a little tunnel down the bottom there, and in there you can see the spider just tucked away. And over here we have, interestingly, I don't know if that's a male. Often the male of a spider is much smaller. That one seems to be on the outside. The spider, you can see the female. So the web is all around here, and obviously it's waiting for something to get stuck in there, and it will rush out from its tunnel and grab whatever's caught there.
Would you say insects are in trouble at the moment?
Some are, certainly. I mean, some have become more abundant. Things that used to be confined to south coasts, with climate change, they're expanding their range and doing quite nicely. But others, there's some insects which I used to see, I don't see anymore in Surrey. They've gone. And they just sort of disappeared without anybody noticing, really. You don't realise these things have gone until you don't find them anymore.
Do you run surveys, regular surveys across the common? Or are there regular insect surveys?
A biennial survey in the sandpit area.
Okay.
That's one of the requirements from Natural England. They give us a certain amount of grant money each year, and in return for that, obviously, the public purse requires some payback, as it were. And so I do an insect survey of the sandpit area, and at other times I would be doing different parts of the common as well. There's green lacewing there. Not specifically a heathland insect, but common on a lot of different areas. And these are predatory insects as adults and larvae. They're feeding on green fly and other small insects.
So this is like a gardener's friend, this one?
It is, yes. Yeah.
What's the most surprising thing you've ever seen in your net, out and about?
Surprising. Well, sometimes I've been you look in the net like that, it's a bit like opening up oysters. You can open up thousands of them, and one day you find a pearl. And it's the same with here. When you stick your head in the net, you never quite know what you're going to get. And sometimes I'll stick my head in there and wow, there's an insect there I've never seen before. So those are the sort of real red letter days.
Amazing.
This is a pine tree which blew over a few years ago, and we just left the stump here, and the root plate. The root plates can be quite good places for these solitary bees. And
I can see holes. I see holes all over
to nest in. Yeah, because a lot of them like a vertical surface as opposed to a flat one. And vertical surfaces particularly are quite rare in nature. Reason being, of course, is vegetation all the time is growing up and shading it, and that rather spoils it for the ground nesting bees and wasps. They like bare ground, so the sun gets on it.
I suppose when you were working at RHS, it was a lot about pests in the garden.
Yes, yeah.
What did you find that during your time there that there was a move towards sort of more sort of promoting beneficial insects rather than trying to kill off the bad stuff?
Yes, I mean it's a general trend, and today the RHS is very green. They don't sell insecticides anymore in their garden centres. If you look on the website, you won't find any mention of a pesticide. It's all green methods, finger and thumb, encouraging encouraging ladybirds rather, and so on, which is environmentally nice, but not necessarily always helpful, because there are some insects who really are genuine pests, and if you don't control them, they just damage the plant so badly that it's not worth growing.
So as gardeners, what should we be doing to sort of encourage more insects into our gardens?
Well, gardens can be quite good for insects, particularly pollinating insects. And the great thing about gardens is you can have something in flower pretty well all through the year by choosing the right plants. And gardens are particularly valuable for pollinating insects during the early spring and late summer, autumn, because those are times of year when wildflowers are relatively scarce. So if you've got insects out looking for nectar and pollen, they tend to be coming into gardens at that time of year. And if you choose plants which are already growing in your area, you're extending the countryside into your garden. But quite a lot of these exotic plants are quite valuable in terms of producing nectar and pollen. So just because it's not a native plant doesn't mean to say it's bad.
And it's not just things like bees, is it, that we need to attract into our gardens? Is it like, I suppose, lots of pollinating insects are like wasps and flies?
That's right, yeah. Almost any insect which goes from flower to flower has the ability to pick up pollen, and if that pollen then gets rubbed off onto the female parts of a flower of the same species, then pollination has occurred. So yeah, pollination isn't just done by honeybees. There's a whole suite of insects which do it, particularly flies, moths and butterflies.
Moths, of course, yeah, moths.
Moths have increasingly been regarded as important pollinators. It's gone unnoticed because most moths fly around at night. It's difficult to see what they're doing. But recent studies have shown a lot of moths have pollen grains on their bodies, which indicates they have been going to flowers to feed on nectar. Okay. And while they're doing that, of course, they can transfer the pollen.
So we've moved to a different bit of the common now. So this is actually the Bedster Trail, which is somewhere we haven't featured before.
Part of the Horsell Common Preservation Society estate, which is called Woodham Common. It's all part of the sort of same general landmass, and it's a mixture here of woodland and a bit of heathland further on. But really, we're just walking through this area to go to another area. But this is what we're on now, is the Bedster Trail, which is an easy access path which was put in about 10 years or so ago now. So the reeds here were planted.
These are all planted in?
Yeah, little tiny bits.
But it's already spreading in, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The problem is going to be in the future is to how to stop it spreading too far. On one occasion when I was coming through here, there's a pair of cormorants hunting, and they were sort of going down and coming up with a fish in their beak.
It's amazing how quickly it happens, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So what we look like we've got here is, what do we think, Andrew?
I think it's a Grayling butterfly.
A Grayling, and that's, like we said, that's a heathland specialist, isn't it, a Grayling?
It is, yes. The larvae feed on grasses.
Tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, what we have here is a pine sapling, and this is a normal shoot there with green leaves on. These ones here are largely devoid of foliage, and you've got the sort of extra material there. What's happened is it's a larval stage of a type of sawfly. If you want to give it a common name, you can call it the hieroglyphic sawfly, and it's a specific feeder on conifers. An exciting thing about this is it's not really a British species, it's a European one which has somehow found its way into the country, and it was found for the first time in this country in Bedfordshire 2 years ago, and I found it here on Horsell Common last year. Here it is again this year, so it's obviously been around for some time probably, and it's spread quite widely. But unless you know what you're looking for, of course you walk past this and think nothing of it.
So this is the larval stage, you said?
Well, it's caused by the larval stage. The larva is a caterpillar-like larva, and it spins a sort of silk tube, and as it goes up the stem, it's eating the foliage, and it deposits its ginger brown excrement on the outside, so that makes it very visible.
So in there will be the larva, will there?
It would have been. I think by now they've finished feeding, and they're down in the soil pupating, and they'll stay there until next late April, May time, when they'll come out and the females will lay eggs.
And how big are the larvae themselves? Are they actually reasonable size? Okay, so
again, about that sort of size, about
a smallish, medium
inch and a bit. Yes, yeah. And it seems to have a particular liking for pine trees of this sort of size, growing in sparsely vegetated areas, which is what we've got here. You can see a lot of bare ground around.
For sure. Andrew, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure going on a walk with you around the common today, even though it's been really hot today. And I know you've already been out on insect walks this morning, so this was your fourth, I think, that you've done today.
That's right, yes.
Right? Yes. Well, we're really grateful to you for giving up your time this afternoon to take us out and show us some of the insects that we could be spotting on and around the common at the moment. And if you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your comments down the bottom, and then obviously put down your screen or whatever and go out and enjoy the Surrey countryside, because even though it's hot, it is glorious at the moment. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.